Let me give you a couple of closing thoughts here as we think about the priest, an excuse-filled and pious heart. Boy, he had reasons. He could have given reasons. He could have said, well, you know, I don't want to be unclean. I've been away from my wife and my kids and my family for a couple of weeks. If I touch this guy, man, it'd get all messy and no telling what. I'd have to go back to Jerusalem. Pious heart. My guess is the priest, like the expert in the law who asked the question to begin with, probably had a little sense in their heart of this. He probably just kind of got what's coming to him. Probably got what's coming to him. A Levite, you might want to write this down. He had a callous and a busy heart. Remember I told you the priest kind of administrated everything. He was kind of the guy at the top of the food chain in the sanctuary in those days. The Levite did all the work. Man, he was the deacon. He was the servant. He was the one. He was busy. He had something to do. Probably he'd probably been up there the same time the priest had. He was on his 2-week stint. He was journeying down as well. Said, I got things I got to do. I've got to get back. I've got to get back to the temple. I've got to do whatever it is. But the Samaritan had the Christ-like heart. Man, he saw the need, and he stepped in and he ministered to the need. Here's the key point. There's a big difference between knowing the law and practicing it in our lifestyle and our conduct. Look at the probing question. You ready? Look at Jesus. He responds. Look at Luke chapter 10, verse 36 and 37. It says, Jesus says, which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? What did Jesus do? He inverted the question. Remember, the original question was what? Who is my neighbor? Jesus inverts the question, asks it back to the scribe, and he says, which one of these was the neighbor? Immediately saying, it wasn't a religious dude. It wasn't the Levite. It wasn't the right tribe. It wasn't the person from the right genetic tribe. It wasn't the person who was the priest, who was the most holy. It was the Samaritan, the messed up Samaritan, the one who had been through life's difficulties and life's hardship and struggling day by day. Look at verse 7. The expert of the law then replied, the one who had mercy on him. It's kind of interesting. Jesus said, which one of these three was a neighbor to the one who had been robbed? There was such contempt in his heart for the Samaritan people that the scribe couldn't even say the Samaritan. Look at it. He says, the one who showed mercy. Are there people that are outside the faith or outside the gospel that we struggle to even use their name? Man, this guy was so pious and so arrogant that when Jesus said, hey, which one of those was the neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? Christ inverted the question. Not how narrowly can I define neighbor, but how do my actions demonstrate Christ's behavior? The scribe hadn't learned anything because he said, the one who showed mercy. And Jesus said, go, and I love this, third time we see it in the passage. Jesus said, go and do likewise. Remember, that's how it started, a doing question. Then look, so why don't we serve? Probing question. Hurry and selfishness prevent us from helping others. Sometimes we have to slow down if we're really going to be what Christ wants us to be. I gave you just for your thought this week, and I'm just going to roll through them. A couple of passages as you examine your own heart and your own life, and while we're together here, here are a couple of passages that I want you to pray through this week. Micah the prophet, what he says, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. James chapter 4, verse 17 says what? If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, for them it is sin. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24, why do we gather together? Let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. Colossians chapter 3, verse 17. Paul said, and whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, giving thanks to God the Father through Him. James chapter 2, verse 26. James, the brother of Jesus, comes back and says, as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead. Here's the key. Faith alone saves you, but a real faith never stays alone. I'm going to say that again. Faith alone saves you, but a real faith never stays alone. In other words, Jesus said they will know you by your good deeds. The only way you can tell if my faith is real is through my actions. A faith that is only stated and never shown probably never was a faith to begin with. Because faith alone may save you, but a real faith never stays alone. So let me give you a couple of ideas on putting this story into practice. You ready? Number one, make a list of broken people in your life. Write them down. Who do you know going through a struggling marriage? They're going through vocational heartbeat, heartache, whatever it is. Man, write them down. Do you have a tendency when you come across someone who's broken, do you have a tendency to distance yourself from them? Or do you instead engage them like Christ would have you do? Finally, what is one thing you can do for your neighbor this week to be their Good Samaritan?